This episode of Finding Demo Surf Fishing is being brought to you by Ninja Tackle. All over to ninjatackleva.com and take a look at the website that is completely filled with great stuff. You guys know I use the Ninja Dagger rods. Use the 7-footer all the way up to the 12-footer. If you haven't been paying attention on there, he just released or will be releasing, depends on that's how you look at it, a brand new 13-footer. So another rod coming out. It's going to be really nice. It's just got tested. Jack went out and tested it with Yakking with Jack. Had good things to say. So new one there. If you need rigs, he's got them. Reels, totally covered. Firearm accessories or anything like that, yeah, he's got it in the shop. NinjaTackleVA.com. Easy, quick shipping, phenomenal customer service. You can't go wrong. Welcome back to a new episode in a new week. And this one's great because in reality, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here in the panhandle of Florida. We're just driving right down the street, actually. That's right. This week, we're talking with Bird of Prey Fishing. And Brian Arnold, if you haven't met him before at any of the weigh-ins, you've missed out. Phenomenal dude, great to have a conversation with, and he's making a hell of a lot of great products. You can see his stuff on Yakking with Jack. I brought him up earlier. Jack uses it, lots of stuff in there. Several other great YouTube personalities have it. You can find it in the local tackle shops, and you can get it online. This stuff is great. So this week we're going to talk all about his stuff, and we're going to, of course, you know me, I'm going to dial it all the way back because that's what I do. We're going to get into his whole story. Yeah, make it weird. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Brian. I'm glad to have you on finally, man.
It's awesome, Brian. Thanks for having me, man.
Only took us, what, a year and a half?
Yeah, at least COVID. Man, it's been like one hurdle after another to get through finally here.
Yeah, and you've just grown and grown and grown from when I first met you, when it was the bottom sweepers and a couple of jig heads. It was just a bunch of different little things, and all of a sudden now, holy crap, it has expanded to so many different levels, and you're just crushing it in the market, man. So many great things, great products. People have had nothing but great things to say. We were talking pre-show. My neighbor works on Destiny. His boat, I know they use your gear. That's a huge accomplishment right there, man.
I appreciate that, man. It's taken a long time. I mean, I think a lot of people have started using us in the last few years because we've kind of been in the background scene of things. Most people when they go buy lead weights, they don't think, oh, who made these lead weights, right? Like that's
Right.
a name brand pyramid weight or a name brand egg weight, just is what it is. But it's been the last few years we've really seen a lot of growth, and a lot of it's just been due to having to find like niche products that our employees can manufacture year round. That's where a lot of the rigging comes into the sheepshead jigs. If it was just, keeping it in the family, yes, we could run this just throughout the summertime. And then, come September, October, as people start getting ready to deer season comes around, yeah, we could just let it, taper off. But when you got employees, they've got year-round bills, so you got to have year-round income. That's a big aspect to it. Pretty much everybody on our staff has got, their young families, got kids to feed, and so you've really got to take that into consideration when you're making products, making sure that they're going to sell, to a wide range of audience that's willing to buy them year round, and that's a big factor to it.
Well, you're being successful. It's very apparent. So we're good. I mean, there's nothing bad there. So let's get into it, man. Let's get right into the questions. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us your story and what got you into fishing, though.
Ooh, well, definitely my dad got me into fishing. Me and my brother both. He was a biologist for the FWC for 35 years at the Blackwater Fisheries Center in Holt, Florida. He's primarily worked on raising striped bass, hybrid striped bass, a little bit of largemouth, catfish, primarily channel catfish. A few other species here or there as they came around, but his primary focus was on stripers and hybrids. And basically, he started getting me and my brother involved in fishing when we were really young. I think my first fishing trip was to Fort Pickens, catching pinfish, and probably about the time I was in first or second grade, they had these kids fishing events that they used to host. They'd fill like 3 or 4 of their lakes with hybrids and a few channel catfish, and they let kids come out and families bring their kids, and I think it's like for like $5-10. You could load the cooler down with hybrids or catfish out of a pond, and it was one of those things making memories as a kid. And the stripers and his work with those definitely played a huge part in my background knowledge of fishing and getting into creating bird of prey. Probably about the time I was in late elementary school, early middle school, we really started getting into flounder fishing a lot. And fishing for flounder, if you're not losing jigs, you're not down there where they're at. And so with me, my dad, my brother, we'd go out and on an average trip, you're losing 20-30 jig heads. That adds up pretty quick. And so then also we'd go on these striped bass fishing trips where we'd go catch brood fish for them to spawn. And we'd use a lot of these hex head jigs that we make for like Spanish and bonita and mahi, and hand tied them at that point in time. And you'd lose a lot of those fishing for those stripers around some of the dams. A lot of debris on the bottom. You're bouncing them up and down, act like shad. And so anyways, probably around the time I was in 5th or 6th grade, he taught us how to start making tackle. Start off with just tying jigs. And when we learned to paint them, powder coat them. And from there, we just learned to pour them lastly. And about 8th grade for me, I started making them. And I want to say it was Gulf Breeze Bait and Tackle was the first place we ever sold any to. Shout out to Victor for trusting us with getting some product in there. It was hex heads and then tied pompano jigs. We used to make a lot of those leg heads, spearheads. We picked up the Pensacola Beach Fishing Pier, and then moved on to Broxton Outdoors. It used to be in Navarre, and started growing from there. About the time I was in 10th grade, Captain, he's still in business. He works with Adam Peoples a lot down towards your direction. Kirk Priestall was his name. He came to me and asked about making some 6-ounce and 8-ounce egg weights. And I jumped the gun and was like, yeah, we absolutely can make them. I don't think we had a mold at the time that could make them. So, had to look up a Do-It mold for 6 and 8-ounce egg weights. And I think at the time our lead pot held like maybe 10 pounds, 20. Oh, no. This was before all the Lee pots got real popular. We were just using a propane fish cooker and pouring them up by hand. And it's from there, it's just grown into a monster. I'd say our primary focus is on the lead. We incorporated 2012, right after I graduated high school. And so that was a big shift for us. I realized really quickly in high school when I got my first truck that I could either go work a part-time job making minimum wage, or I could make tackle, sell it myself, and pay my own bills. And so, pretty quickly is like, okay, this is a much better route to take. Work for yourself, you're your own boss, you make your own hours. If you need to make extra money, it's on you. Crank out the extra time. And it was such a blessing because it put me and my wife through college, paid all of our bills, really allowed us to save up a down payment for our first house. And we'd already had we had our first daughter, pretty early on, and just being able to support them, it was such a bonus. I ended up spending from 2012 to 2019 going to college on and off as an engineer, and it was primarily at PSC. I got my general AA out there, and then I went on the UWF and started off electrical engineering, and realized about halfway through I like working with my hands more, and switched over to mechanical. And so it took me a while to get my degree, working part time and going to school part time and switching back and forth. But what kept us in with Bird of Prey was really that time period I was in college. I realized how big of a benefit this was for my family and us, and not going into any kind of student loan debt. And then when I got through and I graduated UWF, in that time period, I'd met 50, 60 of the brightest minds from Pensacola, working their way through engineering school. And by the time I graduated, there's only 3 of us left. Everybody else has had to move away because there's no jobs here. And I was like, there's something wrong with this situation. You can't just, spend all this time and money going through school and then find out, oh man, I have to leave my family, leave, Pensacola, and go get a job elsewhere. I mean, you see all these people who retire and move here to Pensacola. There's a reason for that. It's an awesome place. And I felt that like, hey, this is my opportunity to, grow something that will hopefully, start giving back to the community, in a positive manner in a few years. I work also part-time for an engineering firm here in Pensacola. I'm a combination of research, material, and mechanical engineer for them. And I've had the opportunity to go and really see a lot of different manufacturing operations throughout the Southeast. And they give me a lot of hope for the United States. These are generally farm towns where they've sent one son or daughter to school, become an engineer or a machinist. They save up, or sell, a portion of a farm to open up a machine shop or some sort of little engineering operation. And from there, they just grow into one big facility after another. And a lot of this is all based around a combination of medical parts industry, automotive industry, defense industry. But I see the possibilities there of bringing a lot of that kind of automated manufacturing to Pensacola, and specifically geared towards the fishing tackle industry. So much of our fishing tackle these days is, it's made over in China or made overseas in general. Most of it comes from China. And I tell people all the time who are starting off, fishing tackle careers that, if you're going to make something, it's not me versus you or the guy down the road. It's all of us versus China.
Right.
Trying to stay focused there. But, to your question about how we got started and that kind of our story, I'd say that's the broad aspects of it. Right now, I'm blessed. I've got my brother here working with us, and it's been a blessing to keep it in the family here and continue to grow slowly but surely.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing quite the growth, and it's very nice. So we're actually going to jump right into the company. We can leave the other questions out. We're just going to get right into the business model here, and you already nailed the first 2 questions, so we're going to get into the third one. Could you highlight some of your flagship products and their unique features that anglers might find intriguing?
Yeah, I think the best way to answer this question would be like start off at the beginning of the year. We kind of focus our shop on the seasonal aspects of fishing, and so, well, really right now, we're in the big transition. If you think of August going into September, right now we're really shutting down a lot of our bulk or heavy lead operations, and transitioning mainly to sheepshead jigs. And we'll do a good bit of like bull red jigs and striped bass jigs. any of our bullet jigs from like 3/4 ounce up to 3 ounce. We sell a lot of those from now to like really the end of December, beginning of January. And they're just general, lead bullet jig painted white, red, chartreuse. We sell a few pink, few yellow, a lot of plain. Just put with like anywhere from like a 6-inch to 8-inch curly tail grub. Guys are using for bull reds or for striped bass up on the East Coast. The sheepshead jigs, that's been one of our probably one of our largest selling items outside of lead. We've got two styles of them. We've got we got a swing jig style, which is it's a football shape. It's got a free swinging hook on the back of it. We've got a couple options there. We'll have a customer to pick or store to pick. We offer a pretty wide variety of colors on them, depending on the conditions that you're fishing, from like clear water to brackish water, or to match up more to the bait. And if there was anything I wish I could change, I would never have called them actual sheepshead jigs. They target so many different species of fish with them. We sold tons of them this summer for guys targeting black snapper. Yeah, that's been one of the biggest things is in the last couple of years. There's more and more anglers targeting mangroves, and those sheepshead jigs, especially the swing jig versions of them, work really well with a live bait on the back of them. We'll sell a good bit of them with a Kel hook option that we offer about wholesale right now, but not retail. And we send a lot of those to like Jacksonville and the East Coast for guys flounder fishing. I think even Emerald Coast Bait and Tackle now carries them throughout the wintertime for our Gulf flounder here. But that'll be the big focus of what we target for the next few months. But we'll have a little bit of a fall push for pompano rigs. Usually October, we'll get a few stores, add some pompano rigs, pompano jigs. Since 2018, we've really been out of the jig tying game. We're hoping that within the next 6 months to a year, we're going to be back involved in that. I'm really excited about that. That was what we started off with, and it's something that just having to work through a lot of kinks of how do you keep up quality on a hand tied product with multiple employees who have different tying styles, just all the different human errors that come into that. How do you keep, when a customer picks up one jig, the jig beside it looks as close to possible as that one, or consistency of like if a customer goes into a shop, picks up one hex head or a pompano jig, and goes to the store down the street, picks up another one, there's logistics aspects to it. But we'll sell some of pompano rigs and jigs usually around October through up to about Thanksgiving. By then, it's gotten too cold and it's pretty much on to bull reds and sheepsheads from there to really we'll sell the sheepshead jigs in large quantities all the way up through about the end of March, beginning of April. And then it starts tapering back off to the lead weights quite a bit. Once we get into January, we always have a big push of guys who are getting out of deer season in the rut, and they're getting their boats ready. And so they always usually end up doing some deep drop trips. We saw a lot of deep dropping weights and rigs during that time of the year. And then usually sometime around middle of March, that's when a lot of our inshore stuff picks up. Although like smaller bullet jigs and sparky jigs and herring jigs that we sell for guys fishing like trout, redfish, flounder, we'll start getting all the store orders first, and then the recreational orders will come in, retail orders will come in online. And really I would say also about the time the sheepshead jigs in, that's when everybody really switches back to pompano fishing. And we'll always have some, pretty large orders come in around April, May for pompano rigs. That's when a lot of the other guys who make rigs will stop. They stop tying them themselves, and they're focused on fishing. And so we'll come up behind and pick up whatever slack is left over. It's one of those things I tell people. we get a lot of customers who come to us saying like, "Hey, man, are you going to be upset if we start making pompano rigs?" And like, man, there's not enough of them. You never make too many pompano rigs. There's always going to be somebody running out or somebody getting out of it. And there's been a few guys, I got to give them a lot of credit, like Friskies and just forgot his name, the Salties.
Yeah,
I mean, they've really stuck with it. Shout out to both of them. It's not easy staying involved in any of this for a prolonged period of time. And, it's gotten to the point where with like online sales, tackle stores that aren't evolving, we see, I'd say on average, we see one tackle store a year as a customer of ours that closes down. And we probably see 2 or 3, small garage manufacturers, they'll shut down a year also. And it's sad to see it, but it's, the reality of it, it's hard to make a living manufacturing things in the U.S. right now. So those guys who you see, they've figured out their pathway to make it happen, give them credit. It's hard work. It ain't easy.
I want to steal a piece of knowledge because you said it, and I know my brain's going to forget it. So you talked about the sheepshead jigs, but you talked about differences with clean water, brackish water. What have you found has been the color? What's the secret code, man? What is it?
So I really need to we started a YouTube channel. We've been so busy, I really haven't had to do much with it, but this is definitely one of the videos I'll be putting out soon, is a breakdown of all the colors. We eliminated quite a few colors over the last few years, just focusing on those that we've seen really take off for different conditions. And so a quick breakdown would be use a lot of the darker colors for more of your, I'd call your clear brackish water. So this time of year, you'll see a lot of the kayak guys. They're still targeting your sheepshead kind of like back up in the marshes, the upper portions of your bays. That's typically, you'll see a lot of like 1/8 ounce through, probably the heaviest we'll sell this time of year is really like, 3/8 to 1/2 ounce. We don't see many of the 3/4 and 1 ounce sold comparatively. So a lighter head, and then the color patterns that seem to work best for those conditions are like our copperhead, root beer, fiddler crab, there's somewhat darker patterns with maybe a little bit of glitter or shine flashing to them. Now you go back towards the west, towards Mississippi, Louisiana. A lot of those guys like the really bright colors. I mean, they want chartreuse, pink, disco gold, but they're also fishing in water that's pretty much like mud, year round. So for focusing on our region, and I would say most of Florida right now, with the sheepshead being still really for the next few months, they'll still be in a pattern of holding towards the back portions and upper portions of bays. Those darker colors are really going to work a lot better. As you transition more towards the winter time, the fish start moving down lower in the bay or fishing area, like, it's got a lot of Gulf, really clean water. That's when we see a lot of the, what I call the sand flea baits. If you notice, like we've got like our sand flea colored jig, and then we've got a few options of it with other colors on it, like our, we've got one we call our purple back fiddler. It's very popular. Gulf breeze fiddler. We've got a ghost shrimp color. That's when those colors really start becoming the dominant sellers as you get into that cleaner water, something that looks a little bit more natural, I think, to the fish. And then, we also start seeing the weight of them go up quite a bit. And obviously, if you're fishing in the Gulf, a lot more current, you need something heavier. If you're fishing towards any of the major passes around here, a lot more current. That's when you see the 3/4 and the 1 ounce. Those sales really go through the roof. Up to about mid-December, I was trying to think about this. Mid-December, I would say up to about 1/2 ounce is probably our best sellers. And then from 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce definitely takes over from, end of December all the way through about end of March, beginning of April. And then it'll quickly shift back to the lighter sizes as people start targeting sheepshead with, a mixed bag of other species of fish. Um, you'll get a lot of we've had a lot of anglers who start adapting to if they're using live shrimp for the sheepshead, especially we get this over in Mobile Bay a lot, where they're using our knocker jigs with the shrimp, and they're using them right alongside for catching speckled trout, flounder, or if a swing jig, you're putting a bull minnow on it for flounder or black snapper. And those same anglers have also started, we were able to track a lot of our retail sales online and see who our repeat customers are. And you see a lot of the guys over time, they started off using these specifically for sheepshead, but now they're buying them year round for other species as well. And that's been phenomenal for us.
Yeah, I can imagine that growth right there. I mean, that piece, knowing that what you're making, though it started as one, has become 5 or 6. That's a super win. And that just, and that even with that, it's synonymous with the quality. They know it's like, dude, these work and I trust this company. That those two pieces put together that makes it a no-brainer right there. Before you continue, before we continue though, we got to do one quick bait check. So just 1 second here. Let's get that one in here. One thing I love, you guys know it. It's the bait check time. It's for that one opportunity for you to bring your line in and check it because you got to do it, man. You just, what are you going to do? You're just going to let it sit out there? You just can't win when you're fishing on luck and hope. Just doesn't work. This bait check is being brought to you by DS Custom Tackle, Delaware Surf Fishing. Love those guys up there. They've got a whole bunch of great things on the website. If you need teasers, floats, gear, rigs, stuff like that, they got it covered. If you need something specific, you can reach out to them as well and talk to them about it. They've got a whole bunch of new things. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Barry with BS Surf Fishing. Yep, Barry's rig with the sand flea. Yeah, it's still good, still doing fun things. Lots more stuff coming out on the website. So that's dscustomtackle.com. Go on up, take a look and check it out. So if the years that grow, like we were talking about, was synonymous with quality, you've created that. You and your team. Let me put that. You and the team have built this monster into this great thing. And now, like you said, it was like, well, this was what it was for, but now you guys are using it for this. All right. Hey, I can adapt to that. That's huge, man.
It really is. And like you said, I'd like to get this through to everybody. Like, it is a team. Good Lord has blessed me with, some of the best, employees and workers that I could ask for. They're really great about making sure that like our quality is maintained all the way through, and they contribute a lot to the design and the hooks that we're using, the components that we're using, and kind of our philosophy is like if we would not spend our hard-earned money on this to fish with, we do not want it going out the door. And yes, it's really easy where like you may make a mistake on something and have a bad batch of something, or you import something in and it comes out wrong, and you're like, oh well, let me just I'll pass this off to this customer at a discounted price, and we'll just be done with it. But unfortunately, your reputation is everything, and so if you cut corners like that, it eventually shows. And so it's just maintaining a real high level of quality all the way through, and having a dedicated team that you communicate with very well to make sure that the products stay true all the way through the process. I absolutely would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for my dad, my brother. We've got another employee, Natalie Cox, and then another business partner, Zach Pennington. They've just done a tremendous job helping us out and get to where we're at. I was glad you did that bait check just then, by the way. I brought something. We've got a new product we're going to be launching this spring. Speaking of these sheepshead jigs, we've had a lot of customers who've been using them for catching whiting on the beach. And they've asked specifically for a smaller hook that they can just tip with like fish bites, fish gum, a little bit of shrimp. And we've been testing this on and off for going on about 3 or 4 years now. we know it works, and it's just we're finally at a point in time where it's like, okay, it's time to pull the trigger on this and make it happen. And so we'll have specifically like a whiting jig coming out, a whiting series coming out this spring, and I'm very excited about that. So y'all are the first people to hear the announcement on it, and glad you bring it to mind.
Dude, that's great, because we all know, I mean, whiting is a fun one to play with, and
It is.
I have definitely learned a couple of really valuable lessons this year, specifically on whiting, that last couple of years I've overlooked, and one of them being smaller hook,
Yeah.
a certain style hook, and a certain way it's done. So I know after the show we'll talk more, and I'm looking forward to that, dude. That's so great that you're doing it though, because
Hey, I'll
it
send you a
is
sample
neat.
batch, man.
Oh, done. You know that. I'll make some weird stuff happen with that. I'm all for it. I can see some stuff between me and Justin Reed fishing, having some interesting conversations and competitions with that one. Um,
Nice.
this actually, what you brought that up with that piece. This actually translates pretty well into the next question for you. How do you decide on what to make and why?
Ooh, I was looking through a list of everything you've asked me here, and that's probably the toughest one. It's very easy in this industry to expand too quickly. And so I would say the first deciding factor on any product is, can we fit it into our manufacturing process in a way that doesn't interfere with the existing products and timetable of getting products to customers? That's probably our biggest problem is, as a business, is balancing a combination of having both a wholesale market, a small, retail presence, online retail presence, and getting products to customers in a reasonable time period. So, like online retail, we really, this year our team has done fantastic. We've really kept it at 3 to 5 business days. And so, if there's any products that are going to take us longer than that to manufacture, it just unfortunately isn't happening right now. For the wholesale side of things, I really try to make sure that we get most of our orders delivered within about a 2-week time span, 3 weeks maximum. There's some of our stores that put in really large orders at a time, and so we'll just divide those up into like a multi-part delivery, so they never run out of any one particular product. And so that's how we kind of navigate those orders. The second aspect to releasing a new product or design would be testing, and more testing. And that, I hate saying it, that's probably the next hardest aspect of it, because a lot of your good fishermen are still very quiet and secretive about what works. And so they still keep, a lot of things under wraps. And you may come up with a great product. You get into the hands of a lot of other anglers to, see how it works. Usually the first time, it's like writing. The first time you make something, most likely it's going to be garbage. It's like a rough draft. Be prepared, to realize that like all the time and energy you sink into making that batch of jigs is probably going to be thrown out the door, pretty quickly. Once you get the testing going, it usually takes a good bit of time in the fishing world to get proper feedback. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you a great example. We make these tubes that we've been selling with pompano jigs. And the tubes, we partnered with a company in Arkansas to, they make crappie tubes in bulk. And we partnered with them to make a specific tube for us that uses saltwater grade plastisol. So it lasts a lot longer when, 1 or 2 fish hitting it. And the idea being that you can change out these tubes on your jig relatively quickly, especially for pier fishermen. Guys sight fishing, one of the problems, then you get on a pier and everybody's throwing a pink jig and one guy with an orange jig starts catching all the pompano. Or, a chartreuse jig, for whatever reason that day, is catching more. So this would allow the angler, without having to retie, to just, change out the tube. And then you also don't have the issues of like a hand tied jig of, if a Spanish mackerel, bluefish, or something else with teeth comes up and grabs it, you can just yank that tube off real quick and throw on the next one. It's taken us a long time to get to the point where those get tested well, and you get several good anglers who use them, and you come to find out later it's like they were using them by accident, or it's like, oh, it's a muddy water day, surf was high, it was a last ditch effort of let me just throw this on and see if it'll work, and by golly, I ended up catching a nice pompano on it.
Of course.
Yeah, so with the nature of fishing is people have limited time. So usually when they go fishing, they're not trying to test out some new item. They're using whatever, tried and true methods are to, be as productive as possible in what limited time they have. And so that's just the nature of a beast. You got to find a good customer base of reliable fishermen, pass the products out to them, spend the money to just, make a large batch of products, get it out to them, and then just be prepared to wait. I would say at this point in the game, most of the time, if we release something new, it's almost guaranteed that we actually made it probably 3 or 4 years back by the time we get to the point where we're willing to release it. And usually from the point where we release it, we usually do kind of like a soft online retail release, or even sometimes with social media to begin with. We'll do like something that's only Instagram or only Facebook. Sell a few batches of it, see what happens. Just slowly increment the sales to the point where you're getting them in stores. And that also helps us, going back to the original problem of balancing our time with manufacturing, with a limited shop space, limited time, limited capital, and making sure all of our existing customers stay happy with what we're doing. So, I think any other aspects to that you want to know about?
I'm like getting the easy way. It's like I'm getting the playbook here, man. And I'm looking over here at the questions at the same time, and I'm laughing. I'm like, he nailed that one. He nailed that one. He nailed that one. It's like you're just crushing through these, and it's so perfect. Um, I, I I'm just loving this. And the conversation's flowing so smoothly because it's just you. I mean, you've always, anytime I've talked with you, it's always been a pleasure to have a conversation because you are engaging and you're very open, and you can tell when you're talking about things, you really care about the customer and the people and the whole process. It's not a, oh, cool, I'm getting your money. You can tell it's all throughout, for lack of better terms, and I can say this word twice in one show and not have to mark it explicit, but you give a shit. And that's huge. And so seriously, I mean, it's just phenomenal and wonderful, all those pieces. Um,
Well, I really appreciate hearing that. I mean, it goes a long way because a lot of times these days I'm working more, kind of in the background, and the goal is in the upcoming years is I'm able to train more people on, I'm able to get back out in front of some things, but until then, being able to hear feedback from you and from other customers, it's always great. I mean, that's what keeps a lot of us interesting, and it is the designing of new products and really the constant process of improving what you're making. We recently had a big change with our sheepshead jigs, of swing jigs, where we've gone on our live bait hooks to where they're all now made in America by Eagle Claw, and instead of us using imported hooks. And we're trying to get away from our own company's dependence on Chinese made products. And that's been at least 3-4 years, about 4 years now in the making. It was 2019 when we started working on that. And it's been passing the ball back and forth to make sure everything's lined up correctly, and we're really excited about that. In terms of, I know there's a lot of other manufacturers that listen to your show and follow you and your podcast, and so one of the things I would say about openness is that I wouldn't be where I'm at today if there wasn't a lot of other business owners who took the time to teach me skills and really take me under their wing and share business call it like secrets, information, knowledge, any of those aspects, I would not be where I'm at today without that. And so I really try to make sure that our shop is open to other manufacturers for that. Obviously, there's a few things that we keep under wraps, but for the most part, a lot of what we do is completely available online. And I would say easily 90 to 95% of it, just watching a bunch of YouTube videos and piecemealing it together, you can do what we do, at your own house in your garage. And we're here to help with that. We got a lot of guys who they want to tie their own jigs, they want to make their own rigs, they want to pour their own weights. Hit us up if you got questions. That's what we're here for. I would like to see as much tackle made in the U.S. as possible.
That would be, I mean, that's a tough challenge, but that would be extremely nice. Before we move into the next question, we'll knock out one more bait check here because now we're going to get into the creative process, and this is, I know that this one's going to dig deep because the creativity with this, I know you've got some stuff in there. That's right. It's that time again, ladies and gentlemen. You got to check that bait. Make sure it's good. Hopefully, you've caught a bunch of fish. That's the goal. If you haven't caught fish by now, man, switch the bait up. Switch it from top to bottom. Or maybe you got to throw a different rig out there, different jigs. Something's got to change. Or, hey, we've said it before in other shows, and I know it sucks. Pack it up and move, man. Go down 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards. Change it up. I want you to catch fish, just like everyone. That'd be important. This bait check is being brought to you by, yeah, that's right, the Kids Can Fish. Love the Kids Can Fish Foundation. You guys have heard me talk about it every week, and I do mean it when I say I love them. They're doing so many great things with these kids. All the money that you send into them and the donations, it goes back into these camps. Helps get these kids out there to learn how to fish, throw cast nets, whether it's freshwater, saltwater, all those pieces. They care and they bring them out there. After these kids learn this stuff, they take the gear home. That is all because of you. And with the big tournament, as you guys know, I would love that. We'll run into the Bulls tournament out there in St. Simon's Island. All that money gets right back in. Huge, great things. If you can go over there, kidscanfish.net's the website. Take a look at all the stuff on there, and you can see they are a 503c. I think that's the way I'm supposed to say it. I can never remember, but they are a real charity. All the numbers of stuff in there. And if you got questions, reach out to them. They're very responsive. And like they always say, it's their unofficial slogan: more tackle boxes, less X boxes. Get the kids out there. Let them fish. What's the worst? They've all got the addiction now. Those poor kids stuck on the things that we love.
That's awesome, though. I mean, any program that's out there that gets kids in the outdoors more, that's the next generation. And I can say this as a parent. Taking the kids fishing, it is rough. There's just no other way around it. I'm sorry. I mean, like, I've got my daughter's 10, my son, he's just turned 3. And it's like, my daughter, she knows how to fish a good bit with live bait, but like trying to get her to use an artificial, it is like pulling teeth. And then my son, he just wants to go and grab whatever rod daddy's using at the time. And, that's his rod then. And so, to all the moms and dads out there who are willing to take time out of their, weekend and, get their kids out there and not just pass them off to a babysitter, all the more power to y'all. It takes a lot of patience and as a skill set all to itself of getting kids involved. And I feel like as a society, we definitely need to do a better job of addressing that, because whether it's fishing or hunting or anything else outdoors related, it's all on us to, foster that love at a young age so that they get involved. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dad taking time to teach us how to fish.
Yeah, I mean, you opened with that specifically. So I can relate. I now have a 13-year-old daughter, and I've learned we bring peanut butter and jelly, a couple of other snacks. I got to stop at Whataburger because if I don't get her chicken tendies, it's not going to be okay. And she has the iPad for the downtimes. But as soon as that rod goes off, man, she is, I'm not exactly a small guy, but she quick. That's not my fish. That's her fish now.
Now, Dad, this is mine.
Yep, and I'm okay with it. I'm like, yeah, have at it. I don't have to run. So let's talk into the creative processing here. You have a lot of products, and obviously it started with one and it's grown and grown and grown. And you've talked about how feedback from customers has also helped shape this movement down as you've seen things and your continued growth. Can you describe the creative process when conceptualizing and developing new products?
Hmm. So much of our business model goes back to that idea of, is this something that is it something that we can sell to the stores ultimately, or is it something that we can sell to a mass audience? And so, from a creative process, I think there's two sides of it. There's the business side, and there's the like fun, like let's just go out and just make something in the shop side. It's easy to go out there and just go like, hey, let me add this hook to this mold, and let me mix these powder paints together. Let me modify this mold this way, and you can go hog wild with that. And honestly, I try to take at least 4 or 5 days out of the year where I just mark off on the calendar like, hey, this is a day where I'm just going to experiment, and I'll pick something that's been on my mind for a while, and I'll sit down for several hours, and I just hammer away at that one area. Whether it's trying to run some sort of experiment on, we're doing one here coming up on the cure times for different powder paints. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. That may sound boring as can be to most people, but to a nerd like me, that's it's that background knowledge that allows you to make new products. I'll go into Outcast or Gulf Breeze Bait and Tackle or Emerald Coast, and I'll sit in there and I'll buy $50 to $100 worth of different little packages of hooks that I haven't seen before. Just to be able to bring back and play around. Like, hey, could we make something better doing it this way? Or would this work for a certain situation? And I think that situational part is the next big aspect to the creative process between what separates something that you sell from a business standpoint to just making something that you're going to use yourself. Could I make a specific jig head for a specific condition for, let's say, targeting flounder? Yeah, absolutely. But how many other anglers are going to use that jig head with that soft plastic fishing that specific condition? So you're always trying to find items that aren't just going to work for what your own personal style of fishing is, but that can be used for a wide range of different situations, different species. That's probably like one of the best examples of that is one of our flagship products, our circle hook jigs. That's a product that we use both inshore and offshore. For inshore, redfish, striped bass, black drum, all those guys use them for that. And then, you take them offshore and people are using them for snapper, with reds, mangroves, triggerfish, amberjack. It's just a wide range of species there. Hex head jigs. That's another like very wide range. There's probably been more species of fish that we've been caught on our tackle on that one jig than anything else that we make. It's you can dart them up and down for Spanish, reel them across the surface for bonita, pitch them for a mahi, but then you can take that same jig, tip it with a bait and bounce it up and down around a pier piling or some offshore structure or inshore structure for flounder. A lot of guides use them here in the fall time for a bull red run. And I've got some of the lighter versions, like the half ounce versions, that guys on the East Coast have been using for speckled trout. And so it's not the creative process. So if you can imagine it with fishing tackle, there's most likely a way you can get a mold made, or ultimately make what you want. But the big limit then on taking that product to market is how big of an audience is going to be willing to use it and test it out, and then ultimately spend their hard-earned time and money both buying it and using it to catch fish. You can sell anything, I think, one time to a customer. but you have one shot. And if that customer goes out and uses your product and it fails on them, or they have no faith in it, they won't buy it again. And it only takes a few times of that before they won't buy any of your products. And so you've really got to make sure that when you're creating tackle, that you capture that, I guess you want to call it the essence, or that moment of when they pull it out of a package and they go to tie it on their line, but they have ultimate faith and confidence that, regardless of what the fishing conditions are, but they have a chance of catching a fish on it. And then when that strike occurs, I think that's even more important than actually catching a fish, but just getting a hit. When you tie on some new tackle or lure and you at least get hits on it, you've got faith in it immediately. But if you get out there and you start throwing something for 30 minutes to an hour to half a day, you ain't got any hits on it, and especially if the conditions are where you believe that they're good. You got the tide movement, you're seeing bait getting blown up on, and you're not getting any hits. Yeah, that's going straight in the trash or the back of a toolbox or tackle bag to never be seen again. So it's just it's a big aspect of it. In the duster.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think that, like, in terms of the overall creative process, I think that's probably the biggest aspect of getting something to market. I can go into all the details that you want about whether it's pouring jigs or painting or, is there any specific aspect of that you'd like me to focus on? Or?
No, because then we're starting into the fun trade secrets. But on the same one too. I mean, you bring up another great point too. And this really, if any of you are out there thinking about getting in this game, is something to think about on the business aspect. You can have 1,000 SKUs. That sounds great. But if you have 1,000 SKUs that, 900 of them suck and the last one's the best one, then that last 100 is that SKU you need to pay attention to. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying on that. It's a smart business model. Make what works and figure it out and continue on. And the creative process right there, like you said, you're going into a place and you're experimenting, but at the end of the day, yeah, it looks cool and it's kind of fun. But is it really going to be useful? And is it going to get, is it going to continue the bird of prey name as a quality product? Or is this just going to be, yeah, I built this in my garage. Yeah. It just doesn't work. So no, it makes sense. Um, that also with that creative process, because that brings us full circle here. And I've heard this argument from other people, and I don't have a dog in this fight because I just go, oh, okay, cool, very well. It comes down to the appearance of the natural bait, and when people look at, I'll be the first one to say it. When I first saw a sweeper jig, I was like, "What the hell is this? The bait's gonna look all funky on there. It's not gonna look natural." And then you start seeing the knocker jigs, and then you start seeing the free flowing hook on the football, and you're like, "What the hell?" But then you realize, holy crap, it works. Who would have thought this works? Can you discuss with us the mechanics of how your lures assist in the appearance of a natural bait?
So I think it boils down to, especially with sheepshead jigs, you're basically presenting a fiddler crab or a shrimp. That's usually the two go-to baits that most people are using. Every now and then you'll see somebody's got a ghost shrimp pump and they're pumping up ghost shrimp, or you got guys who are using one of my favorite baits is like a different like semi-dried oysters.
Whoa, don't.
Hey, we've got a barnacle blue and we've got an oyster color. I mean, there's reasons that they sell. It's
for people that haven't used it. I mean, I am one. Somebody said it to me, and I was like, oh, "Okay, I'll talk about it." And I talked about it, and somebody came up and was like, "Shut up! Don't talk about that." I'm like, "Dude, come on! If somebody doesn't know this one already, they're gonna figure it out. It's a phenomenal bait for freeing sheeps."
And there's so many YouTube videos on people prepping oysters these days, whether it's in the netting, the spawn netting, or or drying them out. Like that cat's out of the bag. I'm sorry.
It is fully, and it should be, because it's all knowledge bait. I mean, I'm not going to digress. Not yet. I'll digress on a later one. Keep going.
The biggest. I mean, I'll tell you this right now in terms of like new products, whether it's Fish Bites, Fish Gum, Gulp, any of these other scented bait companies. the first one of them that makes an artificial that can effectively target sheepshead, they'll make $1 billion right there.
Oh,
I mean, it's like just like what's happened with them with pompano fishing. I mean, the first one of those companies that can consistently allow an angler to use a jig or a Carolina rig to target sheepshead, that's a no-brainer. It's one of the biggest untouched markets right now in inshore fishing. In terms of like bait presentation of the jigs themselves, I'll say this: a lot of people. One of the biggest things I've got to make a YouTube video on, and I'm probably gonna work with Jack on this. Yakking with Jack. It's a lot of people when they think of jigs, they think of like casting a jig out. Like let's say if you're bouncing a jig with a soft plastic for like redfish or trout. Sheepshead jigs don't work like that. It's you want to be as close to near vertical fishing as possible. And so I think the presentation there is that you've got a crab or some shrimp, crustacean, something else that is up off the bottom slightly in a natural position where it looks like it's trying to escape or it's broken off of something. And, sheepshead can clearly smell it. A lot of times in this really muddy water, you'll still get hits from them. And I think it just is an ease of them being able to reach over and grab it. And I've definitely seen it where, especially on like some of the piers, where it's almost seems like a reaction bite where people are dropping the jigs down, and the sheepshead just turns a corner and just grabs it immediately. I tell people this all the time. There are definitely plenty of times where the sheepshead jigs are ineffective. If you are in a boat and you're fishing around like jetties or rocks or even a bridge and it's somewhat rough conditions from the wind, or let's say you don't have a good trolling motor, or you're having to anchor away from it, something like that, and you're having to throw up towards that piling or that structure, you need to use a Carolina. It'll outfish those jigs any day of the week. I would argue if you have to throw more than about really like 10 or 15 yards casting distance, you should probably stick with Carolina rig. That's where like the kayak guys and guys fishing from land have a huge advantage with the jigs, is because most of the time they're able to get to a position where they can fish up and down. A lot of the guys with boats that are fishing with our jigs are actually taking their boat to get to a piling, and then they're like, they're standing up on the piling, getting up on it, or we're using like a set of tires or pool noodles. A lot of guys over in Mississippi and Louisiana will do that to like block their boat from hitting up against the edge of structure, and they're just dropping straight down. And so, that's one of the biggest factors with those jigs in terms of presentation, is that it's something about that vertical presentation that makes those jigs effective. And, I honestly, I could not tell you exactly what that sheepshead's thinking when he sees that. I don't know what it is to this day. Even as a maker, we sell, on average, I think last year we sold just shy of 32,000 of these jigs. I mean, it's insane. And to me, I don't know what it is about sheepshead where on one hand they seem so smart, but it's so difficult to try to get them to hit an artificial. But for whatever reason, that presentation where the bait is slightly up off the bottom makes all the difference in the world. And, I've had a few customers who even say, like, if they use a Carolina rig, like over in Louisiana, a lot of times they'll use a Carolina rig and they're using a float. And I think, again, it's the same principle of most of these bait species that the sheepshead are targeting are generally, like, very buried up in grass, or they're, little crabs or something that are in a hard to reach spot for them. Or, it's an oyster that's, got an armored shell around it, right? And so when you present that bait to them, right, like it's just an easy grab. And I think that's, one of the reasons those jigs are so effective. Above and beyond that, when you start getting into like what the real physics are, I can put you in the direction of a few guys who catch lots and lots of sheepshead, and they could probably answer the question better than I can as a manufacturer of it.
Well, the part of it is people have asked that question, like, "What is it about those?" And you answered it. It's like, it's something about it, it works, and it's not a gimmick. We've seen it. I mean, Jack's videos have proved it, Sean, all these other
Yeah.
the videos show that it works. So, you and with the coloring, I think, on those pieces, because you brought that up, why the color is so important, because it gives you that one, hey, that's maybe that flash piece that they didn't see the crab, they saw something and came over.
Mhm.
And yeah, they're pretty damn smart and their mouths are friggin' rock hard. And thankfully, your hooks go right in and do the job. There's just something about it. And I love that you didn't BS it. You're just like, dude, I don't know how it does, but I know it works. And we've seen it. It's proofs in the pudding. So
That's one of
I think
I'll
it's
say
great
this.
that you
That's one
gave
of the
it up a
aspects
straight
of
answer.
a tackle manufacturer. So there's a lot of products that we'll test out. We know that they work. Most of them we try to make sure we're using them at least a handful of times before we go to the market. Somebody in house is using them, and a lot of times you'll get customers who ask, why does this particular tactic, or why does this particular product work the way that it does? And just honestly, there's not always a good answer for it. Why? There's a lot of products that we make, and I would say this about science in general, right? Like, a lot of our knowledge about science today is built on things that were discovered before us. And so, like, a lot of the products that we make, like, for instance, like a pyramid weight, we sell tons of pyramid weights to surf fishermen. And yeah, you can look at the shape and say, okay, it doesn't roll around as well. But, why is it that, that one particular shape has taken off so well in the United States? But you look at, like, surf fishing in other countries and the molds that they make over there, and some of them will be like an arrowhead shape, and some of them will be like a dice shape. It's like, and like we've had the Sputnik sinkers been, they've been huge along the Gulf Coast here the last few years. Sinker guy, he makes a lot of them. I think Friskies is making some now, and like, obviously they grab and hold up, but you look at some of these different shapes for products, and the tactics of why they work, and there's a whole range of combinations there as to why that item may have come out looking that way. It could be from a combination of, okay, it works in nature, like these sheepshead jigs, or it could be like, oh, that was the best manufacturing design that the guy making the mold could come up with at the time, right? And so you're the person making the tackle is limited by the machinist at that point in time and what he's able to come up with. So there's different factors like that. I would say probably one of the biggest limiting factors in jig production is the limitation of actual, like, good quality jig hooks. All these companies, whether it's Mustad, Eagle Claw, Owner, BKK, one of the biggest factors that limits, like our company and other companies is, what we're at the mercy of what kinds of jig hooks they produce. Like, I would love a long shank, heavy duty jig hook that we could put in jigs for Spanish mackerel, but it doesn't exist. Nobody's making them. So, anybody from Mustad listening to this, there you go. Get on it.
Yeah, you guys just got a freebie right there for product design. Like, oh, hey, you know what? That's a brilliant. Why didn't we think of that? Well, you did now. So congratulations.
Yeah, it's like circle hooks. That's been one thing that with, like, our circle hook jigs and our Cyclops jigs. There's no there's no easily accessible, good quality long shank circle hooks. That limits what we can put in a jig. The gap between the tip of a hook and the shank of a hook, when you start casting lead around it, that really affects the bite of a fish and what they're able to handle. If you're targeting something like a bass, right, you can get away with anything from, like, a really small hook to a really large hook, and then it really boils down to, like, customer preference, right? Do they want a hook that they're guaranteed to get the hook set on them, or do they want, like, a really small hook that it's more to, like, match the hatch? It's more finesse fishing style. But then you start locking, you look at the other side of the spectrum, let's say like a whiting or a pompano, right? Something that's got a lot smaller of a mouth. You get really limited by what kinds of hook options you have then to be able to put into a jig. And especially like if you're wanting to keep the overall design practical, you need to be able to use parts and molds that are already available. Mold making has gone through the absolute roof since COVID. I mean, like pre-COVID, to get a good quality mold made, you're probably talking like $500-600. And now, I mean, to get something done in a timely manner, you're probably talking upwards of like, you know, anywhere from like 1,100 to $1,500 even for a production mold. And so you can't, unless you're sitting on, another job that's bringing in a ton of money, or some silent partner with a ton of extra capital, you just can't go out in the shop and start making things, using up that kind of level of capital to, just make anything that sounds like it's going to work great. So, that's some of the limiting factors there, product design, as well as, what we're limited in our capacity to do.
Makes sense. That's limitations. Not fair. They're not fair. All right. Well, actually, let's knock out the last bait check here. And when we're only down to about 3 more questions in here, and we'll get you down to the final ones and get you out for the night. So you're
All
crushing
right.
this, man. You're just crushing it. It is your final bait check of the episode. And like I always say, I hope you caught a bunch. That's what I really want. I want you to catch a bunch of fish. That's why we're talking here. This bait check is being brought to you by the Sinker Guy. We just talked about him. You need Sputniks? Chip's got them. That's in his name. If you need any kind of rigs, jigs, tools, hey, yeah, he's got them in there too. Got plenty of terminal tackle. I use the scissors. I destroy them all the time with crab, and they keep coming back for more. And then if I need to cut a line, yeah, I got it right there. Good stuff at thesinkerguy.com. Lots of good stuff in the Sinker Guy garage. Chip's got you covered. Go on over, take a look. You won't be sorry. So moving into this last pieces here. Okay, so you brought it up a little bit, and we'll crush into that one, and then we'll get into this last one. How do you stay connected with the fishing community to gather feedback and insight that help inform your design and decision making process for going forward?
So the biggest part of our direct reach with our clients and customers is definitely through our charter boats. Say our charter boats. It's all the charter boats we supply. I would say realistically, there's probably around 450 to 500 charter boats that we deal with, and that's everything from like inshore 6-pack boats to offshore head boats. And so those captains are a really reliable source of intelligence in terms of what's going to work, what's not going to work. The limiting factor there is a lot of the products that we would sell direct retail, especially for inshore fishing. Those captains aren't going to use it. I mean, most captains, when they're fishing, a 6-pack inshore, are going to go the tried and true way of they're going to get shrimp, going to get either like bait mullet, bull minnows, whatever. Using a Carolina rig. You don't use a whole lot of jigs and other artificials on a charter boat. So when it comes to that area, luckily that's where me, my brother, a lot of our close friends do a lot of that kind of fishing. And so for the inshore stuff, that's pretty hands-on. We got a lot of friends who do a lot of surf fishing. I'm really happy. I'm finally getting ready to start getting back into surf fishing after a hiatus of kids. So we're me and my wife have spent some money on some tackle and getting ready to start getting them involved with that more now that they're both able to swim and have to worry about them drowning or running off way down the beach.
Yeah, because that is a big deal.
Yeah. So that's a big one. With the offshore stuff, with it, like I said, we rely on the captains a lot because a lot of the offshore gear we still sell is really catered. There hasn't been as many gains in the offshore world. I mean, like obviously, like the slow pitch jigs are probably, flat fall jigs have probably been the biggest change in the offshore game in the last few years, and that's only been to our advantage because as people have downsized their tackle, they're the same rods that they're using these slow pitch jigs on. They're using our circle jigs and our Cyclops jigs. So that's worked out really well for us. And so usually the offshore guys, kind of our approach to that method is if I or my brother can go out and test some stuff, that's awesome. If not, we've got a pretty large range of people who are willing to test stuff out. With the inshore stuff, a lot of that we'll test out ourselves first, and then we'll pass that along to friends who we think would, who fish in similar methods and ways, get their feedback about it. And then we make whatever tweaks or adjustments we need to make. And that process can take a little bit of time. Like if you don't factor in, if you take out what we talked about earlier with like how do you get it to market, if you just factor in the tweaking back and forth of, let's say, like a jig head, you can go through a few iterations before you get it just the way you want it. Whether that is pouring it a certain way, whether you like the barb that like comes on the jig head, or if you feel like it needs to be modified so your soft plastic sits on it better. Or let's do another example, like a rig. We're doing a lot of stuff with like deep drop rigs and offshore rigs right now, and then we've got this coming spring. We've got a huge thing of different types of pompano rigs, and beach fishing rigs coming out, and so a lot of those are being tested right now. And on those aspects of it, it's finding out, okay, are they catching fish first? And if once you're starting to catch fish on it, you start then going through the physics of, can we manufacture this both quickly so that we can get it to customers in the time frames that we discussed earlier? Or is this going to interfere with an existing product? Okay. And then from there, it's like, okay, if it interferes with an existing product, which product is more profitable? If the product you're already making is more profitable, well, then not too bad, so sad. That new product's not coming to market. If the new product has a higher profit margin, then all right, that's the route we're going. Someone's getting axed, or we're cutting back on something. And so that's a big aspect of it. There's definitely a boneyard, spread out throughout the back of our shop of different experiments, different products that we've tested, different things we've developed that for some reason along that design process, they just they didn't quite make it, or didn't prove profitable. So you're going into a bucket to look at later. And that stuff's really valuable though, because we're all very forgetful, and so there's a whole slew of products that if it was the right time and place, I would love to make them. And they're sitting on the shelf collecting dust right now. But as the operation grows, we hire on more employees. It's always something that you can come back to and revisit. Or it's something where you can go, hey, I've got an experiment for something. You come up with an idea and you're able to go back and go, well, how did I do this before? Or, why didn't I do this before? And so it's always good to kind of revisit that stuff from a design standpoint. I would honestly say it's probably one of the most cliche things you hear, but it's so true. And that is, you can't be afraid of failure. That honestly, like, whether it's any aspect of business, any aspect of life, or it's just, making tackle in your garage, there is no right or wrong way to do it. The biggest thing is just do it, try it out, learn from trying it out, and then repeat and keep doing it again and again and again until you get something that works for whatever your needs are. And that's, I couldn't hammer that into people hard enough. If I go back and, slap that into myself at a younger age, I definitely would. So I think for any of the bait makers out there, that would be one of the biggest things I would tell them. Or if you're just a hobbyist, right? Like if you're just worried about, making your own rigs, or, making some tackle in your garage, and you're worried that, hey, it's not going to look as pretty as what I see in the store. Well, you know what? Those people in the store had to start somewhere too. And you know what? It's, I would say, the creative process in making tackle, like even not from like a business perspective, just like for our own personal perspective, it's therapeutic. It's fun. On a rainy day or in the dead of winter when you're not able to target, whatever your favorite species is. It's a way you can get out in the garage and you're involved with fishing, and you're able to go, hey, you know what? I made this. And then when you take it out on the water and you catch a fish with it, that aspect of going like, hey, he ate something that, I made, that's very rewarding. And I would hope every angler out there gets to experience that feeling at least once in their fishing career. It's something that it's definitely, it's one of those things that'll make, you have always memories of when you go fishing, like, oh, I went with so and so that day and we had an awesome day fishing. Well, the first time you make tackle yourself and you go out there and you catch something on it, that is one of those little, core memories that will get ingrained in your head. Go, oh, I caught that on my tackle. So that's always awesome.
See, I love that you did this though. I love that you brought up the business aspect with this because it, you didn't pull any punches with it. You really just gave it out there of that whole one. Yeah, is this going to work? It might, but at the end of the day, too, great ideas are one thing, but putting food on the table, yeah, sometimes ideas don't give you food for the table for that month. So you got to kind of work with what you have there. But I do love your boneyard part too, because I mean, how many times have things popped up that were just ahead of its time, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, like you just mentioned, the slow pitch jigs out of nowhere that started coming to life, and here we go, and you've got a piece of that pie that's right there and that's ready to play. I mean, it's great that you can bring up both together and you see that picture, and you really helped other people that are talking about it on the aspiring makers or in the garage screwing around having a fun. Give it things a try, and you hammering that, I think, is, I don't want to say testimonial, but it's refreshing in that aspect because you really do. You're making the point that well of try, and it's okay, and you just keep going, keep going, keep going, don't quit. So with you doing all that, it's just freaking awesome. Now I'm babbling, son of a bitch. But all right, here, let me do this then, because you just nailed the last 5 questions in what you just said there. So that made it perfect. You're actually into the closing section here. You're about done. So let's get you into this one.
It's
All
been
right.
fun.
Yeah, you've done the interview yourself. I've basically just been sitting here on mute, like, this is great. I'm loving this. This is so easy. Everybody should make a podcast. You guys are welcome. Here you go. Here's the keys. All right. What knowledge would you give to a brand new angler starting out?
Ooh, this goes right to what I was just saying about the don't be afraid to fail. Um, I think I think we're living in a weird time where it's never been easier for a new angler to go online and to see how to go and target a certain species of fish. But at the same time, it's never been as easy for them to take a lot of criticism and feel a lot of stress and pressure, to go fishing. Um, I've seen a lot of, luckily we live here on the Gulf Coast, so we get a lot of tourists. And we deal with a lot of anglers who are either new or they have limited experience doing some sort of freshwater fishing up north or out Midwest. And so they come here to the Gulf Coast and, we get asked all the time, like, what kind of gear do I need to have? What kind of tackle do I need to have? And, you can usually find that information out pretty quickly. And I always make the argument, like for most guys, bass fishing or, anything up north, whether it's walleye, muskie, pike, that kind of stuff, most of that tackle transitions into saltwater pretty well without too many tweaks or, changes of what you're doing. Like, let's be honest, like most bass jigs and most bass tackle will catch trout, redfish, and flounder. it may not be the prettiest, or it may not be, the exact best thing for that point in time, but it definitely works. So don't be afraid to try. And I would say, you know, use social media and use YouTube and other, aspects of technology like that to your advantage to learn. Um, but don't allow the criticism of people on different social media forums. Like, I see people all the time on some of these little local forums where it's like they'll ask a question and they get berated with answers that are either just, total BS, or people making fun of them, for being acting like they're an idiot or something. And it's like, no, like, don't be like that. Come on now. You started off fishing somehow too. Like, somebody had to teach you, or you had to spend time, learning. And that'd be my final point, is like, once you've learned what works well for a particular situation online, the only way you're going to actually be able to use it successfully is putting in the time. Like, I don't care what you do. If you don't actually spend time on the water, and testing out and failing and not being afraid to fail, you're not going to catch fish. It is what it is. And even, I don't care who you are. Like, I can take you to the best charter boat captains up and down the Gulf Coast. It's still fishing, not catching. You're still going to have days where you get a big old goose egg in that ice box on the way home.
Yep.
And, it's like, the more time you can spend on the water and learn from both the days that you've had success and the days that you've had failure. I think that's another aspect, is that we live in a society where, we get so fast paced, living, day to day, trying to make ends meet, taking care of family, taking care of kids' sports, whatever. Weekend comes along and we fish, and, you use a great example of, like, you go have a really successful day, but if you don't take any notes, like, I recommend a lot of anglers, whether it's on your phone or a notepad, or even just having a conversation at the end of the day. Like, one of my favorite things with my fishing buddies, and especially with my wife, like, a bit of a debrief. Like, what went right, what went wrong, what could we improve upon, what could we do different next time. Compare and contrast notes, and just help galvanize in your memory bank, what you could do next time you're on the water to improve your chances of success. And in the long run, that will always pay off dividends. That's the best way, I think, to approach any aspects of fishing, whether it's you're trying something brand new for the first time, or like, one of my favorite things to do fishing is explore. I love going to new areas, and especially like backwater spots that, God knows the last time another human's been there. I do a lot of freshwater fishing like that on Escambia and Blackwater, where, we may park the truck and walk, a mile or two through the swamp to get to some little slough and, see what's there. Or, we may take the boat, to some, backwater spot that, for whatever reason, the high tide that day has got it flooded, and let's see what happens. Or, traveling, an hour to 2 hours one way or the other to check out some spot we've never been to. And so that constantly trying out new areas, that's a great way also for new anglers to learn that, it's okay to fail and still have fun failing, because they're seeing a new place. They're getting to check out and explore an area they haven't been to before. And so I think that's always a big plus. But that would probably be my biggest advice to them, is don't be afraid of failing.
Good one.
Time on the water.
Oh, man, I'm getting feedback off your computer. That's okay. That's all right. I'm going to make this work. All right. Last 3 questions for you here. All right. So, inspiration wise, are there any fellow anglers, mentors, authors, or individuals who have inspired your journey and you'd like to give them a shout out?
Absolutely. I have spent, and I would recommend this to anybody in the bait making world. The best investment that you can do is invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is spend money on audiobooks, spend time on different podcasts related to business. I would say, if there was one book that a younger version of me could read earlier on, it'd be Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. From a business aspect, that's that can lead you down an entire rabbit hole of different offers. Help out with different aspects of business. From a fishing perspective, think Flip Pallet. I've always been a fan of his. I just Hunt for Big Fish with Larry Dahlberg. That was another big one as a kid. I remember watching his shows where I always thought it was so cool. I think it was the same thing with Flip because he showed how to like tie flies. Larry Dahlberg showed how to make different kinds of tackle. Like he'd go out and he'd catch a big muskie or pike, or he'd go down to South America and catch some big, weird, exotic looking fish. And then he'd take you back to his garage and he'd show you like, hey, this is the tackle I was using, and this is how I made it. And here, you can make this too, just with these products. And so those are probably from a fishing realm, two of the guys I've always looked up to. And then obviously from like a local perspective, I wouldn't be here today without my dad and the whole generation of anglers that he grew up with that were, really on the forefront of fishing technology. So much of what we have today stems from their generation, testing, and pushing the limits and boundaries of what could be done in the fishing world. I think we really take for granted that, recreational fishing, you could argue, recreational fishing for the masses has really only been around for like the last 70, 80 years, one generation really. Before then it was kind of either, a rich man's sport, recreational fishing, or you were commercial fishing, to bring home, put food on the table. But for the days of just going out, catching fish, especially catch and release, and if you went back in time and you told somebody from like the turn of a century that you're going to go catch some fish and you're going to put them back in the stream, they'd laugh at you, man. I mean, it's technology and the speed at which, a lot of fishing is changing. We take that for granted. I think probably one of the biggest problems to look forward to in the future is a balancing act between getting the next generation involved, like we discussed earlier, and at the same time managing expectations and limits on conservation and biology to promote healthy fisheries populations. I think that's something that we're really lacking right now. And I know I'll take a lot of heat for this, but so many of our conservation agencies they react to problems instead of being proactive. And I can speak about that from experiences, having worked with the FWC before, and my dad having worked with them for 35 years. You've got a lot of great biologists that are out there, and then also like Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, they've got a lot of great biologists on the ground. The problem is that when you start getting into politics, nobody looks good when they start adding harsher and harsher regulations. And so I think from a fishing tackle, but from like a manufacturing perspective, as well as just my own self as a fisherman, I think that's something that anglers all over are going to have to do a better job of saying like, hey, if we want this resource to last for our kids or for our grandkids, not only do we have to get them involved in enjoying it, but also, really growing a mindset of conservation all the way around. Like, yeah, it's okay to go catch this fish, but, do we need to fill the freezer like we used to? Or, is it okay to have a slot size on a particular species or put a seasonal bag limit on them? Or, should we try and divert more, taxpayer funding to just conservation in general, whether it's doing tagging studies or spending money on building new hatcheries. And it's a real shame that we didn't get our hatchery here downtown. And I wish, more anglers would have spoken up about that. Alabama, you got to give them credit. I mean, look at the flounder population here along the Gulf Coast. It's really starting to make a comeback in the last year or two. And, I give a lot of that credit to Alabama and all that they've done and really, leading the way in both conservation and releasing, more flounder, back into the wild for us. And we're getting a lot of spillover of that over here on our side. So that's I think some of the factors that all anglers, it doesn't matter if you're on the Gulf Coast or just anywhere in the U.S., you've got to be aware of in the coming years. It doesn't take us very long to wipe out a population of something, especially with all the technology that we have today. I mean, whether you look at like some of the big pieces of technology like spot lock with any kind of trolling motor, and that's huge. I mean, being able to just take any kind of small inshore boat, go offshore, and park it right on the spot to catch any snapper or grouper you want. That's a skill set of being able to hold a boat up over a position that is slowly being lost. At the same time, you've got I know there's a lot of controversy right now with forward-facing sonar and bass fishing and crappie fishing, and yeah, it's awesome, but what's the balance there? As we create better and better tackle, and we adopt better technology for boating, there's got to be the question has to be raised of, okay, is it good for fishing today, but also is it good for fishing 10 years from now? What's the balance there? How do we protect our natural resources for the future? I could do a whole other podcast just on this issue.
I was gonna say we could go into a good one on conservation, man. But well, we're gonna get you these last couple here and continue. So, dude, this has been phenomenal. I can't keep saying that enough. Where can our listeners find more of your content, learn from your experiences, and stay updated on all the things that you're doing?
Primarily, it's going to be both a combination of Instagram and Facebook. We do a lot of joint posts, cross-platform there, but sometimes we do run things just on Facebook. We are currently working on setting up. We've got, I think, one YouTube video up right now, but we're setting up a YouTube channel, and it's specifically going to be tailored towards answering a lot of the really common questions that we get again and again. I end up spending a profane amount of time answering emails about hey, when to use this product, what's the best way to rig this, whatever. And so we're going to make a bunch of YouTube videos answering those questions so that I can better, it'll help my time out in terms of not having to spend so much time on emails, as well as being able to give better demonstrations in terms of answering questions about gear and about when to use gear. And I think that'll tie back also into some different avenues of conservation and some of our tie-ins there. But, you can always email us, bpftackle@yahoo.com. My phone number is open to everybody. It's 850-530-2686. Texting is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Got any questions, whether it's, item related, something that we make, or questions about getting products into a store, or how you order, or even if you're just making your own tackle and you want, ideas, or you need tips and tricks about hey, I've got a problem with pouring something or painting something, just, hit us up. That's what we're here for. Keep it open.
Good on you, man. Well, you almost nailed the rest. You almost nailed the last question with that on itself right there, but it's good to have an FAQ taken care of in a video. That's for sure. All right. Final question here, and I'll get you out of here. What is next for you?
Next. In terms of a shop, the biggest thing we're going to be slowly rolling out a bunch of our jigs and stuff that we had to put on pause for part of this year from dealing with insurance. We're going to be reaching out to a lot of our stores. So we've kind of kept this quiet so that, there's not as much of a disturbance in what we're selling. But we're going to be bringing out a lot of those products back out on the market. In case you've gone to your local tackle store and you've seen a lack of bird of prey, it'll only be for a short period of time longer, and that'll be all addressed. We're about to be dealing a lot with automation. That's going to be a big factor for us for 2024. We're slow, and this goes back to originally talking to Justin also about different ideas there, but we're looking at getting some equipment brought in to help us automate some of the different aspects of our job, and then a lot of semi-automation, whether it has to do with like painting, and there's a lot of existing stuff in the packaging world that we're just saving up for. As soon as you get the capital for, buy that and address a lot of the stuff that's already out there on the market for packaging different products is we've seen is pretty readily available. And this is something for all tackle manufacturers. Usually if there's a way or a reason you see a lot of different tackle stores doing something, there's a good reason behind it. If everybody in a particular field is packaging their product a certain way, or they're doing or making something a certain way, it's probably because all those companies have gone through the process of tweaking things, testing things out. And so don't be afraid of copying what other people are doing, because it's probably the most profitable method already out there. So once we get through the automation and we start learning about that, really it's going to be a combination of looking to hire on more people, and especially the biggest thing is getting a bigger shop. We've about outgrown our current shop now, and it's been such a blessing. We got a great landlord. It's been a great process of learning what it's like to run a business and outside of a garage. I would recommend anybody who's a bait manufacturer, before you think you're willing to go sink a lot of money in real estate, go rent for like a year or two. Renting is not bad. Renting allows you to grow your roots and spread out. And there's a ton of problems I never envisioned working out of a garage that we faced with renting a building. And most of those problems would have definitely carried over had we just gone out and sunk the money into getting a building. And so, being able to iron out those little kinks, that's been great. And so now that we've figured out this process of how to work with employees, and and start bringing some different automation there, get a bigger building. I think 5 years out, we're looking at open up a true retail shop somewhere here on the north side of Pensacola for anglers who are in like the Beulah cantonment area. We're really lacking a bait shop on this side of town, and so that's kind of our long-term goal, is to start opening up something in that direction. Our current shop, just to all your people, is we get a lot of people who ask, like, "Oh, can I come by and see your shop?" Unfortunately, no. Because of insurance, we've really got to limit who all comes by. Or unfortunately, it's lead. It's toxic. In fact, I go first thing tomorrow morning to get my my quarterly blood draw for lead level testing. It's hot. There's a lot of safety issues there, so we can't. In our current setup, we can't have people over. But you can order online. You can ask your local bait tackle store if they can order it for you, or see if they don't already have it in stock. Most of the stores along the Gulf Coast we've got a relationship with, and if there's something that you want to see in, let them know. That's the best thing for us. If you want something in a store, you've got to let the store managers and store owners know you want to see it. If they keep hearing people say, "Hey, I want this product from Bird of Prey," it gets it in almost every time. That's how it is.
Well, Brian, you've been a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much. And everybody, if you come back to the website here, and we'll go over to that, but if you need these links, they're going to be back on the Finding Demo Surf Fishing page, whether it's on the Transistor or on findingdemosurffishing.com. You'll be able to find all this stuff to go link back to them. And the website is birdofpreyfishingtackle.com. You'll have all the links. You'll be able to reach out to Brian, and you should be good. So, bro, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate you. It's been great. Really.
It's been a lot of fun, man. Thanks, Brian.
No problem. All right. We'll talk to you soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you've enjoyed. I mean, this has been a very, very knowledgeable piece on a real deep dive insight onto what Brian does, what his company does, how they do it, why they do it. And I think it answered a few FAQs. That it answered a few for me, that's for sure. So I appreciate you being here. If this episode helped you, don't forget to share it out there. It's the biggest piece in this. One of the reasons I do this podcast. We want you to learn. We want you to catch fish. That's the most important piece. We all learn from each other. Don't hoard the secrets. Help somebody catch a fish. I appreciate you. Love y'all to death. We'll see you next week. You've been listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. I'm out.